back on the Brewery Underground Podcast today, and I think we have a great episode coming up. And hey, Scott Touron, you feeling pretty great today?
Feeling great, dude. This is we've been looking forward to this one for a little bit, and we have some friends in the Cleveland area who are very excited about this one too. So I think this one's going to get a little bit of attention for us.
It's going to be a great episode because we have on today Michael Williams, who is the company educator, historian, archivist, and Advanced Cicerone for Great Lakes Brewing in Cleveland, Ohio. Michael, welcome in. How are you?
I'm great. Thanks, Steve. Thanks, Scott. Thanks for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Yes, sir. Thank you for being here.
It is going to be great. I see the theme we're building right now.
Yeah.
Did we get your title right? Everything
Yeah, I've got a marketing title, but I like for this kind of stuff, I like to focus on the Cicerone and the historian and all that stuff too. I got a hybrid role at the brewery. I kind of do it all, so depending who I'm talking to. All the other titles are made up. All the stuff I sent you is made up titles. So, but that's what I want to be called. So.
well, when I saw historian on there, I was like, hell yeah, because you guys we'll get to that, but you guys have some history there. The city, the building, the whole thing. We'll get into all that. So this is going to be perfect.
Yeah, we love it. I was just wondering how you fit all that on a business card.
It's just the marketing title and the Advanced Cicerone, because
I hear you. All right,
that's the big time stuff right there.
Yeah, there you go.
Well, before we toast our beer, we have to thank you officially for the beer, because you sent us some beer. You sent both of us the Midwest IPA, the Vivacious, the Juicy Vivacious, the Christmas Ale, the Cran Orange Wheat, and the Dortmunder Gold. So we appreciate that. And I am starting off today. I am actually starting with the Dortmunder Gold Lager.
Beautiful. That's a great place to start.
Yes, cheers. Thank you for that. And I have got, because I couldn't wait any longer. I was telling you earlier that I've been looking at this thing for almost a week in the fridge, and I've had to skip past it. So the Juicy Vivacious, which is 9.5%, and I've had Vivacious. I know how good that is. So this is going to be just as good.
Yeah, no doubt to that. I'm drinking Midwest.
All right.
Yeah.
Cheers, guys.
I was looking on my Untapped app the other day, and I've had some Great Lakes, and I've rated Great Lakes. The last time I had the Gold Lager was like 2020, so it's been a couple of years, and drinking it now, and it's pretty good. So
beautiful.
Looking forward to.
Steve, what are you drinking yours out of?
Oh yeah, the Vivacious glass that was given to me by Keith and Elizabeth, our friends in the beer community in Cleveland, Ohio, because they've sent us some beer before, and definitely.
Love it.
You got the same thing, right?
Yeah, I got the same thing, and we're not just sucking up because you sent us beer. We had these glasses.
Right, I know.
We do love the beer, so makes it even more special that you're on with us.
Warmed my heart when I saw the glass. Yeah, and the fact that you guys are Vivacious is a new one too, and you're like, oh, big Vivacious. We're like, yes, we're doing it.
Yeah. Oh, it's killer, and everybody that's had it, like we've had it from them, and they're big fans of it up there, and every time we get it, we're like, yes, thank you very much.
Beautiful.
And Vivacious is one of those that I actually have on here that I was going to get to at some point during the podcast, but I'll just say it here, and I've said it on other podcasts as well. Over this past year or so, I've become more of an IPA guy, and Vivacious is actually one of the ones that really has made me go, yeah, now I'm starting to understand IPAs.
There we go. Beautiful.
So really seriously, it's a great IPA. And I've enjoyed it, and then the other one that you get, the juicy one, I'm sure I'm probably going to have that in the next couple of days. So.
Oh yeah.
What's another reason that Vivacious is so lovely is it's 9+. I don't remember if it's 9 or 9.5 there, and it does not drink like it.
It absolutely does not. Yeah, regular Vivacious is 9. Juicy's got a little boost up to 9.5, but they're both. I mean, if you do the IBU thing, they're both pretty low in the 40s. Yeah. So That's all by design, my friend.
Yeah.
All by design. Yes.
All part of the master plan.
Yes.
Of all the beer that Great Lakes serves out, do you have a personal favorite? Is there one that you go, man, if you hold a gun to my head, this is the one I'm saying I like the most?
Okay. Well, if there's the gun to the head, then I have to actually answer it. Because I was gonna give the change is seasonal, all that stuff. Like I can say right now without a doubt, and it's not like I'm one of our marketing guys and I help the sales team and I do the FaceTime stuff and all that, but I really do love Midwest IPA, which I'm sure we'll get to at some point. That's the current fave. And then if you want to do like the long term, like grand scheme of thing, I've probably had more Oktoberfest than anything else over the years. So like Midwest is newer, of course. It just came out this year. It's got 12 years of Oktoberfest drinking to catch up to. So yeah, our Oktoberfest it's just perfect lager, malty, all that stuff. It's that's got to be my overall favorite. So I gave you two, so maybe I'm done. Yeah.
Well, you're talking my language. I just posted a blog yesterday on basically kind of my tribute to Oktoberfest season, which is starting to wind down, and all the different offerings that I had this Oktoberfest. Unfortunately, I didn't have Great Lakes, so that's going to have to be on my my bucket list.
Bucket list for next year, yeah.
In the year to come. But hey, want to ask you, how long have you been with Great Lakes?
Sure. Yeah. So I have been at Great Lakes for a relatively short amount of time. I've been there for 12 years. So
okay. Comparatively.
So, and I say that because of course the brewery is 36 years old, and we have people at Great Lakes who've been there for I think at least 33 plus years. I got a couple of bartenders that are well over 30 years. Brewmaster's 28 years, I think. First shipper is 26 years. So I tease myself because 12 years is a long time, right? But at Great Lakes, man, I don't know. It's it's not actually that long. So and it's amazing. It's a blink of an eye. 2012, I was bussing tables while I was looking for teaching jobs at local high schools, and then next thing I know, I'm doing the beer teaching thing in 2024. So it's pretty cool.
It's like it's that perfect meld. You found you worked at a brewery, but you wanted to teach, and it just worked out. The two things just came together.
It did, yeah. And I was my high school is actually. Are you guys familiar with the neighborhood that Great Lakes is in, the brew pub and all that?
I've been up to Cleveland, so you guys aren't that far from the actual, the Great Lakes area up nearby where the ballpark is and all that. So in that general region, yeah, I've been in that general region. Yeah.
So we're right across the river from downtown, and there's one of the big all boys high schools is right on the other side of the street from the brewery. So I actually spent a year working there, kind of helping them out, and I went to the pub like twice a week, and then I needed a job, and they're like, "Okay, just come here on this side." So
it's like it was meant to be.
Yeah, it's fun how that worked out, and then basically my whole trajectory, I started doing, I started serving tables, and I was a craft beer fan and all that. In 20 what? Oh my goodness, math. Younger 20s at the time, so I was kind of like exploring all the more full flavored styles that were out there. Yeti from Great Divide, Maharaja from Avery, all that stuff. So classics, 2010s classics. And once I was serving, I was like, I could probably figure out a role at Great Lakes. Because one of the wonderful things about Great Lakes is that we probably seem big, right, guys? Like we seem like we're a big brewery.
Yeah.
And maybe compared to the other, 9,500 of the other breweries in the country, we're big, but we're still a small family-run company. We're still owned by the co-founders, Pat and Dan Conway. So there's room to kind of create your own role if you show you're passionate and you have a certain skill set and there's a need, right? So I did public tours for a couple of years, and then a couple people who did training at the brewery. They all had different jobs too. There's like a brewer who did some training. There was one of my fellow tour guides who kind of did some of this stuff, and they all left. So I'm like, I'll just do all that myself. And I basically made this role. And then I picked up other stuff as the years have gone on. So some marketing stuff. I write some blogs as well. I try to channel my educational passion, through, I'm going to be writing a pastry stout blog coming up. So let's go, because we got one of those now. And I go out and help the sales team with stuff. So, like the beer dinner, the beer dinner I did on Tuesday, we were talking about before the show started. So that's kind of my trajectory, how I got to where I am. Pretty cool.
I'm curious. I was doing a little research a couple days ago, but I wanted to ask you this question instead of like saying this is what I found online.
Yeah.
You all do have a ranking of where you rank as far as like the breweries across the country. Where is it recognized that you all stand of where you rank in the country of breweries?
Yeah, so like if you the list that most people, well, for my world at least, the people refer to as that Brewers Association list, and that's like our trade org or our trade organization. So according to that, and that's the criteria, you're a small independent brewery. Again, small, a relative term, right? We're not one of the large, international conglomerate type breweries and all that, so we're small. And we're still independent, so owned by the original founders and all that kind of thing. So we were 17 on that list last year. And there's really not that many brewing companies outside of what's recognized as craft. So, well, they're starting to become a few more, but so we're still in the top 30 overall breweries in the United States.
Did I say
but again, that scales like this. Yeah.
Are you considered like a regional brewery? Is that what I saw based on the volume that you produce?
Yeah, we fit into the regional category. So they go, oh my goodness. I want to say it's like 50, measuring in barrelage on the production side. We're at like 130,000 barrels on average. To be a regional, it's like 15,000, something like that. Everything above that is pretty much, if I'm not mistaken, would be considered a regional brewery. So it might be something higher than that, but I'm pretty sure that's the limit. It's like below that, it's like brew pub, nano brewery, and things like that.
Yeah, I would still consider you guys still a large brewery, especially from the outside looking in. I mean, you guys make a lot of beer. You make a lot of different beer.
Oh yeah, and it's all relative to what you're thinking about. Yeah, again, compared to most of the brewery, like most breweries where you guys are in Tennessee, like yes, we are much larger than they are.
Yes.
Yeah.
I just drive by. I drive by the AB plant in Columbus, though. I'm like, that's a big brewery right there.
That's a different thing altogether, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
Well, as you said, we're in Nashville, you're in Cleveland, but we know there's people that, listen to this podcast throughout the country. And one of the things that I think Scott and I both, we were talking about this a couple days ago when we were discussing this podcast, was like, there's so much history with your brewery, Great Lakes. You guys opened as a brew pub and a microbrewery in 1988. If I'm not mistaken, it was the first one in Ohio. Is that right?
Yes. When we opened, we were definitely first in Cleveland. I'm pretty sure we were the first in Ohio too. So in Cleveland proper, we had a brewery operating until 1984. That closed down. Of course, the dark ages, a couple of years there was no beer being brewed in town. And I believe that brewery was really like a Philly brewery's outpost up here. So we were definitely the ones who brought true Cleveland beer brewing back after kind of the dark ages ended there. So. And the brothers, Pat and Dan, like they were regular guys. You guys probably know the stories of some of the others, right? Like your Larry Bells and Ken Grossman's and so on, home brewers and all that. But Pat and Dan just really appreciated beer, loved it, traveled to Europe, like many others did, and experienced the traditional beer styles over there. and just wanted to bring that experience to their hometown of Cleveland. So they're from the near west side of town. So they opened up that little brew. You mentioned the brew pub.
Yep.
That's where we started. And again, it's in that Ohio City neighborhood down, again, stone's throw away from downtown Cleveland. And that's where everything was brewed and served for the first 6 years. So from 88 to 92, we were just brew pub. You are drinking one of our first two beers, the Dortmunder Gold. L&S Amber Lager was the other one. So our first brewmaster his name is Thane Johnson, so very German. Surprise, surprise. We got some German stuff. I mean, L&S is Vienna, but that's, for all intents and purposes, German style lager there. So
right.
You know what I mean? Let's not get too technical.
It's the region, yeah, sure.
It's the region, yeah. It's the same techniques and all that. So
right.
And we kind of grew from there. So it's really cool. For anyone who's listening out there, if you're close to Cleveland or whatever, we still operate from the pub today. That original system is still used for some pub exclusive beers that you won't find outside the walls of the pub. Which is tougher as a larger craft brewer. That's tougher for us to do the small batch stuff, So, wonderful locally sourced food. We got some farmland right around the corner in the neighborhood that we source produce from. All that kind of stuff. But yeah, we were the first to kind of led the charge in Ohio and even really throughout the region. You guys are so close in Tennessee. You're
yeah.
So
part of your building, some more history for your building, though. Isn't your building currently kind of fused together from other previous buildings, like Market Tavern, and then there was a feed and seed or something at one point? Don't you sit on all that land now?
We do, yeah. So it's a really charming little space. So the buildings down there in the neighborhood are 19th century. That's when a lot of German and Irish immigrants would have been crossing the Atlantic, coming to the New World for, a fresh start and all that. So Ohio City, the neighborhood in Cleveland where the brewery is located, was one of the areas where a lot of those immigrants settled. And so at that time, when the buildings that comprise our pub were built, there were roughly 10 breweries in the neighborhood, which is very cool. We're actually in... I'm sure we'll get to I don't want to jump ahead too far, but the production facility itself is in an actual brewery building from that time. But then the pub is comprised of 3 buildings. They were separate businesses in the past, and then the brothers, they occupied 2 of them at first and add the 3rd one later on. So you mentioned the Market Tavern. That's where our main tap room is. There's this beautiful old school tiger mahogany bar in there that dates back to the turn of the century.
Yeah.
Right.
The last one.
Yep.
Not this one. It's still easy to say that phrase. So 1901. Yep. And that was basically a famous watering hole in Cleveland throughout its history. So, and it still is one today.
Yep.
The famed story, I don't know if you guys saw this already or not, but is so the reason why the Amber Lager is named for Elliot Ness is because he was actually a frequent patron of that bar, the Market Street Tavern, and we inherited the legend that Elliot Ness, of course, famed for busting Capone, Prohibition, all that stuff. The legend that we received from the previous proprietor is that Ness may have been shot at in the tavern because some people hated his guts, right? So it makes sense.
Right. Yeah.
We, of course, have no way to prove that the bullet holes are linked to him in any way, other than we know he probably would not have been shooting. We know that because Pat and Dan, the co-owners, their grandmother was his stenographer.
No.
So there's a very direct connection, and I'm sure she heard some crazy stuff. Yeah, mother. Yeah. So, but direct relation to the Conways. And she said that Ness did not carry a gun off duty, so he didn't shoot. But people go into the pub, and I still see this all the time. When I was a server, I certainly saw it all the time. People walk in, and you kind of see them I know they're talking about the bullet holes, and then they get a beer, and it's great. It works out.
Are they marked like on the wall, or you just kind of got to find them, or is there like a thing there that
there's a little bang flag. It's a little red flag that just says bang. So,
that is so cool. And I have to say, because I probably have been drinking Midwest. Well, I'm drinking Midwest, of course, but Great Lakes. I'm going to say maybe 10 years. And it's funny when you mentioned the Elliott Ness, because I'm pretty sure it's either that or the Edmund Fitzgerald were the first two that I ever had that I bought in can when I was in Ohio. And even the names of them, I was like, I've got to try these just for the names alone. Obviously, you want to try a different beer, and I'd heard about Great Lakes, and I got hooked on those. And so after that, it's been a great time trying some of the other beers and the offerings that I'm able to get when I get usually up in Ohio and get some of those.
Yeah, yep. Fitz is another one of the OGs. I mean, that's that guy is solid as rock. That's when it comes to medals, that's our most awarded beer. So it's won 5 medals at Great American Beer Fest. So the most awarded porter in the United States. No big deal. Yeah. It's a beautiful beer.
Thing like that.
Yeah, no big deal. Yeah, it's fine. So, but those are and those beers like Elliott Ness, the Dortmunder you're drinking, Evan Fitzgerald. That was what craft beer was all about when we started, right in the '80s. Like, we were kind of making this stuff up. It was like, well, we don't want to do the regular light lagers and stuff. Ironically enough, we now make a light lager, but that's a whole other thing. The full circle nature of all this. But it was all about making our own takes on classic European styles. So those, a Dortmunder style lager, Vienna style lager, robust porter, and so on. Kind of what we built ourselves on for the first 30 plus years. And it's still what most people know for us today. But then we have all the cool, you guys are tasting some of the flashy new stuff that we've been putting out in recent years. So, and that's part of what I love about what we do at Great Lakes is that we've kept the tradition and the history while still also being creative, innovative, and providing beers for people to enjoy the next 30 years from now as well. So I think it's really cool about what we do.
I think that was going to be one of my questions, really. Like, we have talked about this so much on this podcast. We've talked to brewery owners around here of and ones that have been around for as long as you all have. Like, you start out in the beginning and you're doing this core, and then how do you go about keeping up with all the changes? And we know right now, there are so many different changes in the craft beer industry. It's not just about craft beer anymore.
Yeah, it's not easy, especially for us when we had so much success with a certain approach for a long time. Figuring out how to pivot and then do the new thing, it definitely took a couple of years for us to really nail that and get it down. Thankfully, I think we've been doing a really good job in recent years. And I think we did a solid job before, but we did traditional styles for so long. And, all of our beer is packaged in bottles until 2020, for all intents and purposes. Because that's what you did in the 80s and the 90s. But all of a sudden in 2015, everyone wants cans now. It's like, what? What?
Yeah.
And, where do we put a canning line and all that stuff? So it took a little bit of time, but there's some leadership stuff, basically. The Conways are the owners, but they've hired in executives to help steer the ship and all that. And basically, there's a certain point where it's like, okay, we got to try some of this new stuff. And we went in with a hazy IPA a couple years ago, Hazecraft, and I mean, that was big for us. I know hazy IPAs are of course, but it's when you kind of cut your teeth on lagers and malt forward beers and stuff like that, pivoting to something like a hazy IPA was a little bit of a switch. So, and then we tried some stuff, and some stuff worked and some stuff didn't. But we kind of were able to get to the point where, okay, Vivacious Midwest, we've kind of refined process. We did bring on a fellow named Stephen Powells, he was the brewmaster at Boulevard. You guys know Boulevard from Kansas City. Yeah. So he was brewmaster there for 20 years. He Tank 7, their famous Saison. That's him. He's done so many other things. I believe he also. So I was talking about this in the training I did earlier. He invented their Saison. He also invented their seltzer. So he was able to, which is Quirk. It's I think one of the bigger craft seltzers. So we brought him on, and he was able to. We already had a really great brewing team. He was kind of able to elevate the team even further to like really nail these contemporary styles. Like, look, IPA has been around for a while, but like the way that these IPAs drink is different from how IPAs drank 20 years ago. And then it's a lot of data driven stuff these days. So on the sales and marketing side, in the past, and this is everybody in the 2010s, early 2010s, it was like, oh well, this did well in the pub. Let's try it. Let's send it out to market. Cool. Right. And like, unfortunately, people don't care about Doppelbock that much. You know what I mean? Like they do in the pub. They'll have a Doppelbock in the pub, but like they didn't buy the 4-pack of a Doppelbock all that much. So
yeah,
we I mean it can kind of sound a little lame or whatever, but it's just we started looking at actual trends, data driven stuff, and what's nice is that these beers that we've come out with in recent years have the same kind of hallmark Great Lakes balance and drinkability. They still feel like Great Lakes. They kind of look like Great Lakes. Like the Midwest IPA, there's no story behind this. There's no character on there, but it still kind of has the general feel of a Great Lakes beer and all that. So again, that's part of what I really love about what we're doing is like, we're like for these new products that we've come out with, it's data driven stuff, using new techniques and all that, but it still has that same through line for us as a brewery. I
just wonder if there is as much pressure on you guys because you've been around, say, a lot longer than the guy down the street that maybe has only been around for 5 years to really evolve and change because people are used to what they want to get. At Great Lakes. So how do you balance that, or do you feel like you have to balance that?
Yeah, it's tough because we are very lucky that we have those day one fans that are still with us, and that's 36 years. It's a long time of following, and I would say the biggest. It's okay, not no problem bringing this up. One of our longtime brands, Burning River Pale Ale. We did actually discontinue that beer a couple years ago because it's a lovely beer. It's a good old classic American pale ale, Cascade hops, some crystal malt in there and all that. And people in the pub who have been coming to us for over 3 decades drank that beer all the time, but it just wasn't. It didn't have the I in front of it. It was just a pale ale. It wasn't an IPA, right?
Oh.
Yeah.
So. No, but it's in serious. It's a different flavor profile and all that too. So we do have to make some tough choices every once in a while. That was probably the toughest one we've had to make in recent memory.
One of your kids, but if it's something you had for a long time, you're really partial to it, and you don't want to let it go.
100%.
Like that, yeah. But then it's like, well, we got to still trying to stay in business here too at the same time.
Exactly, yeah. And Burning River was suffering for a while, so we really don't want to let it go. But it's one of those things you just got to do. But then you got to do. And I think this is where so because we have that long track record and the brand loyalty and all that stuff, this is where kind of the education and communication piece comes in big time. So when we have to do stuff like that, balancing tradition while remaining relevant. That's where, explaining to people why we have to make certain decisions is so important. And, having people like me going out and talking and our sales guys, and it even goes to stuff in like social media, the newsletter and all that stuff, and of course in our pub, when people come to us and interact with us, it's,
and I'm sure you got people that say, "What do you mean you're discontinuing that one? We love that one." I go,
right.
You're probably like, "Yeah, I know you do, but not enough people do."
Exactly, yeah. And how do you say that, right? How do you say that to people? You can't really do it, but that is the reality, right? That's the reality. Right. So yeah, and it would be nice. One of the biggest things is you mentioned like the new guys who are around, like there's a lot of beer out there, and we would love to have 25 beers out there in the marketplace, but it's not possible to maintain that, and especially to maintain quality. So like, you think about a beer that, can we do a small batch or whatever, and then you have a 6-pack that sits on the shelf for far too long because there's just too much to manage. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah.
I have a question.
Good question. Sorry, I was.
You're
I was
fine.
talking. I was talking about the guys before this. This is for the listeners. This is the end of a 3-day a 3-day marathon for me right here. But we're doing it. We're doing it. Yeah.
You're good. You're good.
They'll probably start running together for you.
And my 5-month-old baby is right on the other side of the door. So, yeah.
No, you're
I've
good.
got a question because the West Coast IPA.
Yeah.
Actually, it's the Midwest IPA, right? It's not West Coast. It's the Midwest IPA.
But that's a good lead-in right there. Yeah.
Yeah. So my question is you feel like that's more than just a name? You've got, and I just said like a West Coast IPA, and you've got East Coast IPAs, and people kind of know what those are, right? Is there a true Midwest IPA? Are you guys kind of like, this is what the theme should be, or we're kind of creating one, or was there one that you're staying true to?
A little bit of both. So we would argue that this is like the contemporary expression of it. I would absolutely tip our caps to like a Two Hearted, Bell's Two Hearted.
Yeah.
That beer has been around since the 80s, maybe the early 90s. And it's kind of similar construction. Not really a ton of malt, but there's a malt backbone there. Not super bitter like the West Coast hop expression. So there's inspiration from that approach. But this is kind of a fresh take on the whole thing from us. So then, of course, Two Hearted's a classic, and as a Cicerone, I tip my cap to it. It's a classic. But so I'm honestly surprised from the more marketing side. I was like, oh man, no one's really like owned the name Midwest IPA, and we can't own it. You can't trademark it. You know what I mean? But it's like, no one's doing this already. Like, so we can just do it. Okay, that's great, cool.
It's almost its own brand, right? I mean, it's like a West Coast. It's almost its own.
That
brand
was like a celebratory day, wasn't it?
Yeah, like why don't we just call it Midwest? Oh wow, yeah. But for us, so the West Coast thing is salient because West Coast IPA is of course, that's the predecessor to what just general American IPA becomes, right? So like your Two Hearteds and other brands like that are basically just, we call them American IPAs today, but a lot of them have roots going back to the West Coast style. And then you got the hazies, which are originally New England IPAs, which that's obviously a big break from the IPA brewing tradition because it's totally different in appearance and mouthfeel, the hop profile that's going on flavor-wise. So what Midwest is you take the best of the West Coast, and you take the best of the New England, and you kind of, where do you end up when you go from those two areas? Oh my goodness.
Right in the middle.
Right there in the middle, in the Midwest. So what Midwest IPA is all about is, on the West Coast side, is there video for this, by the way? Do you guys post a video, or is this just the audio?
We have a video that we're trying to do some more video within the course of what we do. So yes.
So if the viewers can end up seeing this, Midwest IPA is appearance wise. Oh, let me top that off. There we go. 2 fingers, right? 1 or 2 fingers. Clarity wise, it's got it. So this is not a New England style turbid, juice bombing or anything like that. It's got the clarity of a West Coast. And then it's kind of got the snappy body of a West Coast. A little bit leaner, if you're thinking in terms of like finishing gravity for the homebrewers out there, it'd probably be a little bit on the lower end. So not as much residual sugar left over and all that. But what it doesn't have, like a lot of traditional West Coast have, is that big bite of bitterness. So think of your palate wreckers and ruinations of your 100 plus IBUs, that whole phase that we went through in craft beer. This is not that. So 45 IBUs is what we list. So testing right around there in the lab. So what that does, it's just enough bitterness where it makes this beer, you kind of want to come back for that second or third and fourth sip of it. It enhances the drinkability, but it's a low enough level of bitterness that it's not going to off-put someone who typically doesn't enjoy IPA. So that's the West Coast side. And then when it comes to the New England side, it's got it doesn't have that hazy appearance that a New England does. It doesn't have that fuller body that the New Englands can have sometimes, but it does have the low bitterness. So two sides of the same coin going on right now. And it's got a lot more of the when it comes to the actual hop flavor profile, it's got a little bit of both. So it's got there's Cascade in here, so that's your classic kind of like Sierra Nevada Pale Ale hop. And then I joke about this, and it's just kind of funny. Vivacious and Midwest, I think, have been our most successful IPAs, and they both have Citra hops in them. So
yeah,
kind of like
beautiful.
Put Citra in there. Good to go. All right.
Absolutely.
We got it.
We got a winner. We got
a
couple of winners.
Yep. There we go. So
when I said this earlier, I mean, when I had the Vivacious, it was probably about a month or two ago, and I've tried some other IPAs this year, and I feel like I'm graduating a little bit, Michael. I'm like, yay.
Beautiful.
Because if you'd asked me like 2 years ago what I think about IPAs, I'm like, yeah, I'm more going to lagers and some other things. So I'm really glad that I've been able to graduate a little bit into the IPA.
Steve, was it what aspect of IPAs did you not enjoy in the past?
I'm gonna say a lot of them were the West Coast IPAs.
Okay, you think it's the bitterness factor?
Yeah,
probably that. Yeah,
I think so.
And that makes sense. If you just think about how we're wired, like bitterness is something that kind of signals that something could be harmful to us. So like, it should be no surprise that a lot of people didn't enjoy IPA that much until recent years. And the hazies ended up being a signal to like the rest of us, like, oh, if we just not make them bitter, then people will like them more. So, and then we did that, and surprise, there's a little bit more of a mass appeal for stuff. So
and the fun thing is, we sometimes, Scott and I will talk about this on the podcast, and then when we're out with friends, we talk about this as well. It's like, if you drink more different craft beer over the years, if you go back and you look at your ratings, maybe on Untapped or something, I'm always pleased when I go, okay, compared to what I liked this 3 years ago, I like this a heck of a lot more. It's very rare that I go in and go, man, I don't like this at all now compared to then.
yeah, and that's the beauty of Untapped. I know there in the industry there's some haters out there on Untapped and all that stuff, but and there are the problems of great Pilsner 2.5 caps or whatever. But
it's the ignorance of the people checking them in. Yes,
but I love Scott, talk to the man about Untapped, because you're very passionate.
Oh my God, I do love Untapped. Yeah, but we've learned a lot by talking to brewers that we didn't know going into it, that brewers for the most part hate Untapped, and for the very reason you just said.
Yeah.
Or it's 2.0 on this IPA that averages 4.5 because they don't like IPAs, and you're like, okay,
right.
It's not for you, man. So for you guys, there should be a way that you could, like, I don't know, take those out somehow, or not let them not.
That's why I just rate all my beers a 5, so it just evens out. Yeah.
you bringing up the other ones?
Yeah, I know, and it's all in good fun. And in the end, the beauty of that is that there are thousands of ratings. It's going to average out. You know what I mean?
It is. We love it. We as we've talked to more brewers and we realize that aspect. I would never give anything anyway a bad rating because I didn't like the style, but I'm certainly a lot more conscious of it even going into it. Like, okay, somebody made, and I will look at the overall average. It doesn't necessarily say that's what I'm going to give it, but take that with a grain of salt, right? If I'm giving something a 2 and it's a 4.5 again, I'm wrong. Okay, there's something wrong. I might not like it. That's okay, but it's not a 2 at the same time. So it's kind of understanding what Untapped is supposed to be for and what it is.
Exactly. And, for us who are passionate about beer or work in the industry and stuff, and we're like, how come people don't get it? And it's like, they're just drinking beer. You know what I mean? Most people like have this much capacity in their brain for that. And that's okay. That's perfectly fine. So yeah,
it's like social media. Like it's like any other social media for people. They just get on there, they do whatever they want to, say whatever they want to, and no repercussions or whatever. Just move on to something else. They don't put a lot of importance into it.
And I want to know, Michael, what your rating system is. Like, what do you consider? If you see, and there's no bad answer here. What do you look at if you're seeing Untapped, and let's say somebody's rating a Great Lakes beer, and they're rating it, I don't know. What do you go? Oh my gosh, is it that? What's your criteria?
So, there are a couple of different scales here. First of all, for me personally, I still use it all the time. I love having the history and the log of stuff I've had, and I'm just a nerd. I just like using it and toasting my friends and all that stuff. When it comes to what we see, I'll hop on there every once in a while and just see, especially when a new beer comes out. So Vivacious, Midwest, and then others when Christmas Ale comes out, see what the comments are, all that stuff, especially the early comments. I honestly, I don't pay attention to the ratings that much because they pretty much are going to be what they are. Like if it's a double IPA, it's going to be about a 4 for us. If it's a regular IPA, it's going to end up being a 3.7. Like it just ends up being roughly that. You know what I mean? Yep. But the comments are that's what I'm looking for. And I know as I say that, it's a charged thing because there's obviously the wild comments, but you see certain feedback of like, say for Midwest, like, super, it's got good hop character, but it's super approachable, super drinkable. It's like, yes, that's what we were going for, So when you see enough people say that, it's like, okay, we got it, and it really can be a good tool. It's easy for crotchety brewers to be like, Untapped and all that, but you can see out there, especially for us when we are a regional brewer and a lot of our business is driven by 6-pack sales in grocery stores in states that are 2 borders away from us. It's a great way to get some data to be like, okay, and obviously we've got the sales metrics and all that stuff too, but then on the marketing side, we can get that verification of like, people are enjoying this. It's doing what we want it to do. So does that kind of make sense to you guys?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Just don't look at it too much. Yeah.
No, and I like this. I like that you said you like the comments kind of more than the rating. But when you look at a rating, what do you think if someone gives you a 3.5 or a 3.75? What do you guys consider, or you would consider, a good rating for your beer? If you see somebody check something else, anything over a certain amount?
Yeah, I mean, I think the 3.5 is the standard. 3.5 is the 2.5, right? Like 3.5 is average.
You're with the 80%, like 80 or something.
Average good, right? 5, so it's not average in the sense of it's just like, this is a good solid craft beer. That's what I would look for. 3.7, it's like, okay, we're getting there. 4%. This is like, but then it's tough too because it depends on the style, right? So like again, like I kind of mentioned before, if it's a double IPA, I need a 4 too.
Yes.
Yeah.
If it's a standard IPA, that would be good, like 3.9. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Like my go-to now is used to be, and I'm a subscriber now, or a insider, or whatever they call it. So I can rate in tenths. And for a long time I didn't do it. I didn't think it made any sense. But to me now it does. I'll start if a beer is just really good, above average, solid, just sit down and drink it. I'm starting at a 3.8. It used to be a 3.5 for me. Now 3.8. Like that's okay. That's on the higher percentile.
That's a good like baseline right there.
Yeah.
Relative to what people realistically do.
Yeah, I'm going 3.8, and then it's almost like 3.8, and I'm adding points for this, or I'm taking away points for that, kind of thing. If there's just something off about it, or something's exceptional, I'm like, if I get to a 4 or above, man, we're in another category. I love it, and we're going. How far can we take this thing?
Yep. And I appreciate you guys put the thought into it. It's good. Yeah. Because it's really easy to just throw something up there and then move on. But we need reviewers like you guys out there to balance everything.
Yeah.
Well, I do have a couple of.
I do have a couple of like 0.2s and 2.5s, but that's like Schlitz malt liquor and 8 Ball and Oling.
All good fun. Yeah. Hey, dude, for the style, they're pretty good. Okay.
Yeah, right? But they don't care about that. I'm sure they don't care about Untapped.
They don't care. They probably want a low rating. Yeah.
That's right. Let's buy the stuff on the low end of the scale.
Yeah.
And so leading up to this conversation, real quick, Scott, and so when I went on my Untapped app about a day ago or so, and I was looking at what I had, and this Dortmunder Lager, I had rated the 3.75 back in 2020. I believe I have evolved because I would probably rate this between a 4 and a 4.25.
Nice.
Yeah. So I'm glad I've graduated a little bit more.
We're gonna need to see the proof on your Untapped after
I will be rating it after this episode. Yeah, definitely.
I like it.
You can check it out.
Screenshot that. Let's go. Yeah.
Screenshot. I will do it.
Dude, I'll go back. I'll look at the check-ins. I'll look at all. I'll find you. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Nash Sully on there. So yeah.
I know my Untapped. Yeah.
There we go.
Hey, you guys, we did I don't know. It could be you, and also it could be. I know. On the production side, they've been doing some adjustments to make the beer even better, like continuous improvement mentality and all that. So, Dortmunder's potentially the beer I've noticed that the most on. It just we adjusted the pH in the sparge basically for the brewing stuff. So it lowered the pH just a little bit, which gave it a little bit more of a snappy. I'm using snappy a lot today.
I like it.
But a crisper, or you could say crisper. Dortmunder is a fuller lager, compared to most of the other lagers out there. It's still, of course, a lager, so it's relatively drinkable. But for a long time, that beer for me, and I guess it could be partially me too. But it had this more roundness to it and everything. And this is good. And then the past probably year or so, I've been drinking. It's it's just that much crisper. The malt is there, but it's not heavy. The flavor is there, but the heft isn't there. And I'm getting a little bit more of the hop presence. So maybe it's a little brew process too. It's earning the 4.25.
Yeah. Well, that's awesome that you say that because you're around it. You're literally around this beer all the time. And if I go, like Steve said, if you haven't had it in 4 years and you go back and maybe, you might not know the beer got better. Maybe it's just I like lagers more than I did before, or my palate's changed or something. But just for you to hear you say that is maybe there's something to that as well. That hey, the beer actually did get better.
Yep. Absolutely.
And I will admit, I don't typically go back to see and research have they changed the beer, but it is something that, as you just brought up, I kind of wonder. Has it changed a little bit over in the last 4 years since I had it? So that's a really good point.
It's mostly we don't do a ton of wholesale recipe changes, if you will, but how can we make the beer a little bit better? So just little tweaks in the process. So it's the same beer. Yeah. It's just a better version of the same beer.
Yeah, you just tweak just a thing here or there can make just a slight difference, so you could tell a difference.
Exactly. So we're proud of that. So.
That concludes part 1 of our episode with Michael Williams, who is the historian, archivist, and Advanced Cicerone at Great Lakes Brewing Company in Cleveland, Ohio. Part 2 will be up soon. For Scott Touron, I'm Steve Sullivan, and this has been the Brewery Underground Podcast.